Thank you for clicking on my video. You didn't have to do that, so I appreciate that you did. You're awesome. So I'm really excited because this is my first exclusive interview. Having said that, I have to apologize in advance. Full disclosure, because this is my first interview, I'm still kind of learning how to use the software. So the video quality isn't as good as I had hoped that it would turn out. But the show must go on, so enjoy. I am very sorry, but it's a learning process, and I will get better at it over time. Mr. Flickster! Hello, world! It's Mr. Flickster, and I just love talking motion pictures. So for tonight's episode, I have two very special guests. They're two upcoming filmmakers that are causing quite the buzz in the Toronto area and in the film circuit area. So without further ado, I'm going to bring them on. Sorry, my cat's bugging me. Yeah. She always wants attention when I'm on the phone. So my guests tonight are John Nicol and Andre Becker. Say hello, guys.
Howdy.
Hey, Chris.
Glad to be here, because I mean, any chance we can get to plug away some gossip on our flick is okay by us.
Luckily, I was able to review this for horrorbuzz.com. And I was really impressed. And ever since then, John and I have kind of kept in touch, and I've been following you guys' progress along the way. And it's really exciting because you guys keep getting more buzz and more acknowledgement. And it must be really exciting for you. When you made Underneath, did you guys have film festivals in mind, or were you just trying to make a really cool horror film?
Probably both. I mean, the goal was to always tour it with the festivals. Generate some buzz that way, but we always wanted to set out and just make a wicked horror film, or something that would get us out there. But my previous film, I did the same thing. I launched it into a festival circuit, and that was always the plan. I mean, it's an expensive endeavor because those fees are like racking up for sure, but yeah, there was always a plan to get it out into the film festival circuit.
Thank you very much. That's really insightful. I was just looking through that email that you sent me, because you got a list of the different ones that you've been to so far.
Yeah.
Here we go. As of 2022, February 13th, you've entered the Psychedelic Film Festival, the Hastings Rock Music Festival, Montreal Requiem Fear Fest, Stockholm City Film Festival, Monsters of Horror Film Festival, and the Fortean Film Festival. And you just won Best Actor and Best Original Score at the Toronto International Film Festival of CIFT, and the Best Horror at the Ediplay Film Festival. And you got Best Horror and Best Sound Design from the Falcon International Film Festival. So yeah, you guys are doing really well, in my opinion. Like, you
not bad.
not too bad at all.
Yeah. No, it's cool because I mean, like, you've watched the film, so you know it's not straightforward in the traditional sense. Like, even as, like, to compare it to like a creep show or another anthology film like that, it kind of goes off in a very different way. It explores maybe different themes that aren't usually explored, and it is very nice to see that there, are it's getting some appreciation and attention. It's getting noticed for, I guess, maybe for what it is, and I think that's really cool.
Totally.
Oh, believe me, I think you guys are getting all the attention you deserve. I like the film myself. I thought it was really well made. So I'm just curious, why did you guys choose to do an anthology film as opposed to more of a linear story, like a more traditional film?
Well, I set out to, I was the one that came up with the concept of doing an anthology right from the get-go.
Okay.
Essentially, it was our original concept when I pitched it to Andre as well, was to do a creepshow type movie where there was a bunch of shorts and then bound together with some vignettes and stuff, and then have a common theme. But the most important aspect of it was to have 4 to 5 different director talents tackling one project or one chapter. So unlike, well, in the fashion of, say, like the ABC anthologies or whatnot, or even the VHS anthologies, there was, you got different flavors with different directors and stuff like that. So I set out to sort of write the vignettes, and then write a chapter of my own, and then approach other directors to work with that I've always wanted to work with, and sort of let them see what their take of the same theme was. We wanted to go with a sort of demon-based type theme. And then I asked Andre and asked a few other directors, which did bail over the course of time, which then led us to sort of scramble and not sort of throw in the towel, but I ended up directing and writing another segment and the vignettes, and then Andre ended up doing another segment. And one of the final segments, the director sort of ran out of funds and stuff, so we took his footage and I turned it into sort of an experimental piece to sort of more or less salvage the project, so it wouldn't go to waste, because there was a lot of quality stuff there, and he knew what he was doing. He was just sort of ambitious about going forward into that whole realm. But we did lose directors for various reasons, and then had to scramble to fill in the gaps, basically. So that's how the anthology was always the concept, and the theme was sort of set up by myself, and it could be metaphoric or literal. Like when it came to demons, personal demons, metaphoric demons, it just had to be connected to some sort of demon-esque type thing. And it could have been completely metaphoric, like, say, Von Trier's Antichrist or something. Wasn't supposed to be literally on the nose about demons kind of thing. But if you chose to do that, then that would be fine. And every director was tackling their own story and their own project, and handling their own crew and actors and all that sort of thing. So
That's fascinating. Thank you. And what did you do differently for the second film? Because you told me that you're working on part 2 now.
Part 2 is following the same tradition. I upped the ante for sure. The vignettes sort of were the grounding cornerstone for the sequel too, because the vignettes follow this guy who's sort of succumbed to evil voices that tell him stories in his basement, and they sort of I wanted to allude to the fact that he might be crazy, or he might actually be in direct communique with hell. And what happens is as the film goes on, he progressively gets more and more insane as the movie goes on, from the telling of the tales from these cracks in his basement that leach black chemical, or like black fluid. So in part 2, which I'm about 70% done now, I heightened the whole vignette thing, where the key antagonist is trapped and imprisoned 3 victims that he subjects to the tales of hell. So he's got these 3 victims in his basement, all being exposed, like the scene in Clockwork Orange, with they're receiving these messages of tales involuntarily. So and he's in service of hell basically at this point. So he's subjecting victims to the tales of demons and whatnot, and same sort of format, where it bridges into each tale is an expansion of the vignette, like the story of the vignette expands as the movie goes on. So, and unfortunately this one's a little different. I'm actually handling all the direction, so I'm doing all
the whole thing's directed by you this time.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, so it doesn't have that flavor of the different style before, because that did remind me of some other movies that you mentioned, like ABC's of Death. The way that, because you can tell that the different vignettes are done by different people just by the way it's all done. But it's really interesting that you're doing the whole thing now. Have you ever directed a feature film before like this one?
No, the chapters were done by different people. The vignettes, I directed them all.
Yeah.
So all the vignettes with the guy in the basement were all done
Yeah.
by me.
Wow.
It's the chapters those were always done by myself. It's just I had scrambled to do the other ones when other directors dropped out. So it's very much just an extension of the first film minus 3 directors or 2 directors. Instead, I'm tackling
Cool.
them all.
So that's pretty exciting. You got all this buzz going for the first one. You got the second one. Pretty much, it's still in progress, but it sounds like it's getting close to the finish line. And how exactly did you choose your cast for like the first film?
For the most, we selected a lot of people that we have worked with before on other projects, more so Andre than I did. But the crew and stuff, there was a lot of people that we've have worked with before on different projects and stuff. But most of mine I tried to cast with people I didn't know, or the chapters I wanted to work with people I didn't know, so I could sort of get that fresh perspective. And for me, working with the same people over and over again, not crew but actors, there's a bit of a complacency that comes with it too. Like I wanted to challenge people and push them to the edge when I work with them. I don't want to have to worry about pre-existing acting stuff that I've done with them before. I don't want it connecting to previous things. I want it to be fresh. So
Yeah, you want it to be its own thing. I get that.
and with Andre, it's a little different. He can probably explain that for you.
Well, I will say though, the cast that I chose or that I ended up working with were people that, yes, I had worked with before, but I wasn't directing them. So like it was when we were putting together Secret Santa. There was quite a few cast members that I just really liked. And I actually got the director of Secret Santa, Mikey McMurrin, to actually play the main guy in the one segment called I Can Change. And then we had Nikki Caro. She was in Secret Santa. I'm sure there was a couple other, there's the one guy that's being attacked on the fence. He was actually the assistant director. So, there was just, also based on where I was shooting, I knew that they were going to be kind of close. So I was like, hey, you guys want to, help me out on a little project here. But of course, one guy that I definitely brought in for crew, well, there was a couple. One actually was my brother who helped as a producer on this one. He was a co-producer on Secret Santa as well. And he also helped with the post audio. He's great at that stuff. So it was great to have him again. And also Michael Malco, who was the director of photography. We really connected on Secret Santa, and I like working with him. Like we can communicate really well, and we share the same language when it comes to that. So it's always great to have someone like that, shooting your movie for you. So yeah, he's just someone I like to have like as much as I can anyway. So
and to expand on a little
That's
further,
awesome.
Andre was the one who recommended the lead character in the vignettes. His name's Brent Barrett, because he had worked with Andre on Secret Santa as well.
Oh,
yeah. And actually a film that Brent Baird wrote and directed called Seeking Oblivion. That's another one that Brent Baird and my brother and myself, and actually same director of photography, Michael Malco, he shot that one for him as well.
wow. So did anything like weird or crazy or funny happen on the set of either one of the films that you want to share with the viewers? Like any funny stories?
Oh, it always spirals into weirdness on our film. Even the people that are brand new slowly succumb to this sort of surreal behavior of us. My first feature, I worked with Andre. He starred in it. It was called Channel Zero, and we set out to sort of day one say, hey, this is a contract that you guys are going to sign, more like an actor's release, but it's like, we got to be very cognizant of, you know, discrimination, sexual harassment, those sort of things. And everyone's like, yeah, we're all okay. I get where you're coming from. We're going to be all professional. And then within 2 days, we shot this first scene, and it was in a nightclub, and people are making out with each other. And after that, and having a few drinks after that, it went south. Everyone sort of ripped up their contract mentally. And sort of did their own thing, and that kind of philosophy has been there. You sort of put it out right off the bat that you're going to be professional about it, but you know, if it goes down a path where it turns into jokes and good fun and stuff like that, then you just ride with the energy of the actors and the crew. You don't really worry too much. At least you set out from the get-go to sort of establish a pattern of professionalism. But if it gets goofy, it gets goofy. So that's been my experience with it. So
yeah, you know, and as long as everyone, you know, everyone's on board and you're just having a good time, it makes it the long days and nights that much more enjoyable. Like you just are having fun doing it. And I think that's really important to, like, because you don't want it to feel like work. You don't want it to be laborious, you know. So you just want to have a good time. And I mean, especially when it comes to horror, it's like, you know, people are getting, you know, covered in blood and you're smearing it everywhere, and it's like, you know, you got cool effects and stuff. Like you just really want to have a good time with it. And yeah, I mean, again, going back to Secret Santa, it was the same kind of thing where, you know, it was just a good bunch of people that just really had fun, and it just made it fun. And you, like, you know, 3-4 in the morning, no sleep, but you're having so much fun, you kind of forget about it, you know.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. You just kind of go with the flow because you do want to be professional.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. You just can't forget that you still have to make a movie.
When you work on a say drama kind of film and work with a horror, then all of a sudden Andre and I are totally into horror, so dumping a bucket of blood on us would be okay, and we wouldn't think seconds about it.
I'd be fine with that. Like, yeah, let's go.
Jump like chicken or something. We'd be like, all right, that sounds good, but to everybody else, you got to be cognizant of that. It's like, ow, I got something in my eye. I go, what do you mean? It's blood. Here, take another bucket.
Wipe it off. Let's go.
So it's a little different. You have those. You forget that not everybody's gonna like lie on a fake dead corpse and smother themselves in blood and all this kind of stuff. You know,
yeah, not everyone quite gets into it the same way as, say, John or myself. You know? So yeah, it's like, yeah, you're just like, you just go for it, and you just have fun.
I kind of do the same thing sometimes.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So what was your gateway to horror? Like, was there a certain movie that you saw and you're like, oh, this is it. Like, this is for me.
Go that one first, Andre, or should I tackle that one?
Well, you know, I'm trying to think, because I know it's like I was always scared of, you know, watching that kind of stuff. Like it took me a long time to really kind of expose myself to that. And I think some of the early ones that I just kind of stumbled on when I was like maybe 11 or 12 was like, you know, my uncle had, you know, left his like Betamax at our place, and there was some, you know, a bunch of tapes on there. So you're like, you just, what's on here, you know? And I watched like Critters and Nightmare on Elm Street, which, you know, I was like, okay, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed them. They were fun, but they didn't really scare me. Nightmare a little bit, you know, but it wasn't until like I was a little bit older, and then I watched, it was one of those nights where I knew no one was going to be around, and I don't know how they rented it to me, because I don't think I was even 14, but I grabbed a copy of Pieces. I don't know if you've ever seen that Spanish movie about the killer that's like taking the parts from the different victims and slowly making like this doll. Well, anyways, yeah. So I watched that, and that was to have watched that one by myself at around, I think I was maybe 13. That was a little traumatic. But there was something still that kind of you know, was left in my brain that was like, don't know if I want to watch that again, but I sort of do, you know. So then I started exploring more stuff. And then I think, yeah, the next one that really had an effect on me, and I know it had an effect on John as well, was probably Hellraiser. Like that was the one that, after seeing, like, you know, Friday the 13th or whatever, which, you know, like, you know, it's about a guy who's killing people, and that's what the movie's about, you know.
Yeah, yeah,
Where
that's the movie.
yeah, where Hellraiser just threw so many new ideas that just I was not prepared for. So that kind of scared me, because I was just not expecting what I saw. So yeah, that was definitely one of those ones that, a little bit traumatic, but again, in a good way, because I just kept watching more and more and more. So
It was a little similar for me. I had a lot of early childhood experiences with very cool films that resonated, and very crappy movies that resonated, that made a psychological impact. Like, I know as a kid, watching the Amityville Horror was traumatic and enticing. The Changeling was another one.
That's a good one. Yeah.
There was one I watched from the corner of my mom's living room at the time, and I only watched it listening to it, and it scared the crap out of me, and I still can't find that movie. It was about a mud monster, made for TV mud monster movie. And then my uncle took me to
you
see
sure it wasn't Mud for TV?
Mud for TV. My uncle took me to a film because Amityville Horror was sold out, and they snuck me into a movie, really an anthology movie, believe it or not, called Screams of a Winter Night.
Oh
And
wow.
I tracked it down on VHS and since watched it, and it's horrible, but the resonating impact it has on you as a child is amazing. And then my dad used to rent a bunch of horror flicks for us as kids to have Halloween parties in grade 5 and grade 6, like Halloween 2 and Demons, Nightmare on Elm Street, which freaked the hell out of me because nobody knew about Freddy Krueger back then, and
Yeah.
it was very revolutionary in terms of horror. And then I started getting into Fangoria magazine in high school, and like Andre said, for me, the pinnacle moment where I knew horror was the shit was Hellraiser, because I saw the cover of Frank with Fangoria where he's skinned and he's like all just muscle tissue. And my dad snuck me in at this Cineplex theater here in Toronto, and I was way underage. I was like grade 7 or 8 or something, and all my buddies at school, I was, how the hell?
Of course you were. I think most people were underage the first time they saw the first horror movie.
Yeah, I got to see it at the theater. It wasn't on video, so
Oh, you saw it in theaters. Wow, that's amazing.
yeah,
That's so
I was
cool.
it scared the crap out of me, but it solidified my love for Clive Barker. I was like, next day I was at Kohl's buying books by him, and I always loved that sort of and I didn't know why, but I was really drawn to this sort of industrial S&M angles of the Cenobites, because I really got into industrial music after that as well, and
Oh,
just solidified that whole love for that weird stuff. And I've always been on a fan of the weirder stuff. I love those nights where City TV used to have the Friday the 13th marathons and stuff, but like Gondor is saying, to me, it's just a guy killing. I like the things that sort of conjure up more imagination and sort of make you think about the possibilities of something. Like if you're going to expand your perceptions and stuff, I like the stuff that's not readily in your face, you know, like that's just me. So Hellraiser is probably the key cornerstone for me for sure.
I can tell just by the way you guys are talking about it that you're really passionate about this for you. And I really appreciate that. That's awesome. How long did it roughly take to make the first Underneath film?
Well, that's a long and arduous journey, because if you were to do it in real time, probably a couple months. But since we had such a checkered past with the people dropping out all the time, like literally 3 directors dropped out, and then we had to re-scramble to get things reorganized. And then when that didn't come to fruition, I was like, then you have to go back to the drawing board and write another chapter, and writing another section of another short film is kind of laborious for sure, but like once it was locked in and people weren't dropping out, it was pretty quick. But it's been a bit of a journey. It's probably from sort of the drawing board to completion about 4 years.
4 years, wow.
But
Yeah.
that, you know what? That said, though, it's not like it's been 4 years straight. It's
No,
been,
that's good.
it's just been like kind of, it's taken 4 years to get from where we started to where we are now. And that, you know, we've had a lot of like stop and go, you know, and even with like, you know, you would shoot one weekend with the cast, you know, and then it's like, oh, well, we need to pick up some stuff or whatever. When can we get together next? And then you schedule that, you know, and then, you know, a month, sometimes two goes by, you know, and then you finally have that, you know, that free night to do that, you know. So it does get kind of drawn out. And also, I mean, the last couple of years, they've sucked. So that kind of, you know, that you know, that pushed things back a little bit too, you know. So
I love your
just,
honesty, your
but
candidness.
yeah, and that's just, you know, that's indie filmmaking. You just you go with it, right? And the one thing you do have on your side, even though you can sometimes spend a little too much of it, is time, you know, because you're not on someone else's schedule. But yeah, you can definitely get lost in that sometimes. But yeah, it also is something you do have when you need it. So
I notice you guys keep mentioning the word laborious, because I know filmmaking is a very laborious job. So what did the two of you do to keep yourself motivated during this long, arduous process?
We love it. I mean, that's just, for me, that's
The,
just,
the love of horror, I love that.
it's not even just the love of horror, because I love film. I
Right.
love all film. Horror is just a sort of stepping stone. Like, I mean, the films that I admire are like not even horror. So it's more the craft and the art that drives me. It's not so much just horror. Horror is fun and I love it. But if I honestly had to break horror down, I'm more impressed with psychological horror, human horror, and that kind of stuff. I love the fantastical stuff, but I mean, a lot of it, and I'm just gonna say it, I can fast forward through it if I need to, because I've seen carbon copies of it over and over and over and over and over again. So I get it, and I'm not gonna kick myself in the gift horse mouth, because this is helping us get out there. I love horror, and we set out to make a horror. It wasn't like we shied away from it. It's just I love film, and I include horror in that category. Film is film for me. I don't separate them to. I don't split hairs when it comes to film. Like if the horror has to be in a film category, and I love it, like my top 10 films will include a horror film as well as something like 2001. I don't see the distinction, and I don't I that's just me. I like film, period. So it just happens to be horror is a lot more fun. Because I think about setting out to make a drama, and it doesn't appeal to me right off the bat, because I want the process to be a little bit entertaining for me, as well as adventurous too. So the idea of just sitting up in a restaurant and doing a two shot of somebody talking at dinner about a relationship is, I don't know. At some point,
Yeah.
wanna-
Not your cup of tea.
I want to see something beyond that. I want to see, and I know we were talking about this before about injecting art into it. I love to see the craft expand artistically too, because a lot of the films that I admire, are horrific, but they're also pushing the boundaries of like integrating horror and art into the same realm. And like I just fall back to Clive Barker. I mean, the guy is like that. He injects everything with art into his stuff, like so much that he would paint pictures before he writes a novel. He paints all the
Wow.
characters before he actually writes his books and things like of that nature. So there is
Yeah.
that sort of love of art as well as love of art of filmmaking, because it's exciting. I'm not gonna lie to you. It's fun. It's like it's taxing, but man, it's adrenaline rushing. So, and I love creating. So,
You know, and that's one thing though that I really appreciate about horror specifically is the there's so many levels in that, like um I'm talking like scope. Like you can see like a big Hollywood horror production, and there can be some great stuff, but then there's those micro budget stuff, that people love as well, and sometimes even more. And I think that's what's great about the genre itself is the love that people have. Like, I think you would have more luck selling someone on a low budget horror movie than, like, say, a micro budget drama or something like that. Like, there's I don't want to say it's forgiveness for the lack of things, but I think people just there's an aesthetic to it that people are drawn to, myself included. Like, I mean, I love all sorts of stuff. Like, I do love big, movies. I also love like some real garbage, like there's, as long as there's something in there, to take away from it, the sleazier the better. But hey, we it's just, yeah, I don't know, I think there's just something about it that it's very I guess broad, and it can, it's varying levels of enjoyment.
Amazing. So what do you guys think is the toughest job when it comes to filmmaking? Would it be like the writing process, or would it be the directing? Would it be like the editing? Like, what's the hardest part about making a film, in your opinion?
for me, it's making independent films, because a lot of times you're wearing like 500 hats. So it's like, I'll take this hat off, I'll put that
Juggling.
hat off, I'll put
It's
this one
juggling.
I mean, that's a tricky question, because when you're playing with micro budget or zero budget films like ours, and I mean, to us it's not micro budget, but to like Hollywood, it's
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
Oh, yeah.
cheap money, right? It's
Filmmaking
like,
is expensive. People don't realize how expensive it is.
but I'd have to say, from the hats that I've been wearing, the editing has been a tough phase, because you're basically putting together the parts that can be salvaged or finessed or made to look better. And if you didn't catch something properly on in the field, it's this is the time that you can recoup those losses and make it glorious again. So editing is arduous for me.
Interesting. And how about you, Ajay?
I would have to say the hardest part, it's not so much the idea process, it's the writing. And it's only because I just hate it. I mean, I would rather just like scribble little doodles and just put some. And you know what? Funny enough, I think that's kind of how half the script was for some of the segments in underneath, as far as I was concerned. Anyways, at least before we would shoot, I'd make sure that there was stuff, for the cast and crew to understand what was going on. But I gave them just what they needed. And yeah, so I that would probably be the hardest part for me, is just the process of having to write it out. But that's just, I don't know, there's just something about that step that just, it's not, I guess it's not hard, I just don't like it. I don't like doing it. So,
It's hard to get yourself to make yourself do it.
yeah, maybe. But yeah, I have to agree with John a little bit too. It's when you are actually shooting and stuff, and you have to think about all these other things that no one else is. The problem with that is that you lose your focus a little bit. But I mean, that's just kind of how it goes. So you have to just go in with as much, either like notes, or if you're just shooting something loose or whatever, then just know what you got to go with, and make sure you get what you need to get, because there's not going to be anyone else, reminding you that you need this, you need that, so I know so many times you end up like just completely overlooking like really important details and things that you needed to get, and then you're like, oh crap, I didn't get that. So it's just sometimes we have to kind of juggle, and then you just kind of forget, or you lose, like I said, you just lose a bit of that focus.
It's really interesting. It's cool to hear directly from the filmmakers' mouths, because this is actually like the first interview that I've conducted with real filmmakers. So this is new for everybody. We're all learning here. So, did you have certain goals in mind when you were making the film? Like you mentioned before, there's things that people didn't think of. Like, could you elaborate on that a little bit more?
Are you talking about like just the idea itself, like for the stories, or
Yeah,
um
yeah, exactly. The ideas itself. You going through like your script or whatever, and you're like, oh, I didn't include this, and I forgot to mention like this part, and like
oh
how does
yeah,
that all happen?
well
Like,
yeah, that I think that's just sort of like when just like as when you are shooting, and like you have a certain amount of things that you need to capture, and you just either get wrapped up in the moment or just completely lose track of what you're doing, and those certain shots or details just kind of get missed. And I was thinking of there was one shot in I Can Change when we were doing it, um, that I just completely missed. I mean, I was able to kind of still put it all together after the fact without having to go and get that shot. But it was just one of those things that had I gotten that shot, it would have saved me a lot of time and effort.
that's awesome. I have one more question. Do you have any advice for any young, aspiring, up and coming filmmakers that haven't gotten into like the film festival circuit yet, and they're really trying? They have their movie, they're ready to go, but they just can't get anywhere. Like, what's your advice for those people?
You just got to keep plugging away, man. My first feature, it took us like almost a decade to get made. And even to this date, I'm gearing up to sort of secure a distro on it. And you hear these stories about like Sylvester Stallone taking 10 years to make Rocky and all that kind of stuff. And then even on their scale of budget, it's a daunting task. But the thing is, you just have to plug away. And I know, I think it's Andre has the book too, but there was a lot of wisdom in that book. It was a Lloyd Kaufman book, that Make Your Own Damn Movie.
Yeah,
Yeah, was that it?
yeah, make your own damn movie. And just talking about advice, that's definitely one. Get that book. Don't go to film school. It's a lot cheaper and you'll learn more.
Yeah, most people
Love it.
know if they're into film, they're gonna be into film from like frame one. Like the stuff I sort of went out and learned on my own before college, it was like repetitive and stuff. And by the time you get through film college, for us, I mean, we're dating ourselves. It all went digital, so
Yeah,
the techniques. I mean,
Oh,
there's something to be said about learning the craft first,
for
and I get
sure.
that. And,
yeah.
if you're gonna learn the rules, you have to know how to break. If you're gonna break the rules, you have to know the rules.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
I don't dismiss that, and I think there's a certain uh, like romantic quality about that, because for the longest time I used to defend film stock and all this kind of stuff, but Andre and I were talking about or shooting our 60 mil films back in college and stuff, and you get a 4-minute movie costs $5,000 to like make and edit, and now it would probably cost like a couple $100 to do the same thing. And not to mention the environmental impact it has. Like, I mean, everything's digital now, so you're not dealing with chemicals. And even in underneath too, there's one of the chapters, one of the characters is playing with Polaroids or using Polaroids, and I realized how many cartridges I was like pumping through and chucking into the garbage. And I was like, and those cartridges have their batteries in them to power the Polaroid. And I'm like, wow, this is a pretty like chemical holocaust kind of industry. And like, if you go digital, which I still like the film
Oh,
quality
for
is good,
sure.
Like, I mean, Channel Zero, my first feature, we set out to shoot on a stock that, or a digital video that looked, it was at the dawn of the digital video being 24 frames, so it looked like
Mhm.
film still. So, you know, I love the look of film, don't get me wrong. It's just now in these days it's easier to get stuff made, and so with these kids coming out these days, they just got to keep plugging and plugging. And networking, oh my god, if I'd learned to network like one of my friends,
Really?
oh, it's so advantageous to talk to people and not to be reserved. Don't keep yourself, like, it's the one thing that kicks me in the butt every single time, is that I'm just learning to be more talkative and networkish and stuff like that. But oh my god, 10 years ago I'd be like, no, forget it. Now you can network with everybody, and it's, you just got to be persistent too. um you just keep plugging away and hammering on those doors, because and the kids have it a little easier too, our new filmmakers, because with this pandemic and the need for streaming content, it they're like ravenous for material. So it's not Hollywood like before, where, you know, you come out of college and you're directing Apocalypse Now or something. You know, it's uh everybody in the world can direct a movie now. I mean, so you just got to keep plugging away.
That's really good advice. That's awesome. So how long have you guys known each other? Because you mentioned that you knew each other in film school. Is that where you guys met, or did you know each other before that?
No,
Oh,
no.
it was in our mother's womb. Like, we were brothers then. So no, I'm just kidding. We, it was from college. And one of the directors that had to cancel on the film, he was another friend of ours from college.
Yeah.
The other director of Underneath was a friend from college as well. So we kind of known each other for easily now, what is it, 30 plus years now, Andre?
Well, that was we met in '94, I believe. It was '94.
Wow.
Yeah. Because that was our first year of college. So it's been a
Going
few
strong.
years.
That's pretty cool, guys. So will the film Underneath be available for streaming anytime soon for people, or what's the plan for that?
Yes, we've secured a distro company who is aiming to have it. That's all dependent on when we get them the content for like quality control and all that kind of stuff. But their aim is to have it available for Blu-ray, DVD, and streaming platforms mid-summer, like mid-July maybe. So, because it takes, they work on a quarterly system, so they tackle and release movies in a quarter chunk, so every 3 months kind of deal.
Okay, that makes sense.
And it does take some time on the streaming services end to sort of once they say yay and no, nay, they go through their own quality control stuff, and it's pretty arduous. So
I wondered about that because you mentioned before that you were doing audio commentary for DVDs. So I'm like, oh, it's going to be on DVD. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they think a lot of the money these days is in the streaming services, which it probably is. But thankfully, with horror fanatics, there's the demand for physical media still. So
Yep. One more reason to love horror fans.
And
physical content.
It's true. Yeah.
Thing. I want something tangible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
With the whole prospect of the Blu-ray and whatnot. So.
Oh, yeah, I have a ridiculous amount of Blu-rays and DVDs. I love having that physical copy. I don't like the idea of just having a digital copy, because what if something goes out like on their end in their mainframe? Then my movie's gone. I want something I could hold, like what you were saying. That's so cool. So I think that just about does it for all the questions. Is there anything else that you guys want to add? I don't want to take up too much of your time. It's been almost an hour now that we've been talking. I just realized.
All right, the basketball game's in the background. It's all good.
Oh.
No, I mean, I'm just glad it's there's people like you guys, like you, sort of plugging our stuff away. And thank you for that, and thank you for your time too. I mean, it means a lot to us to have to get this project out there, because, like our advice, it's all the networking. The more people know about it, the more people are gonna pick up the Blu-ray in June, July, or stream and watch it to the end. And not be the sort of curmudgeon like me and fast forward through all the indie horror films. So
But yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Like it does mean a lot, you know.
You're welcome.
yeah, you got the mantle for first official review.
Yeah,
So.
you were the first eyes on it.
I was the first eyes on it.
as
Oh my
a
God, I had
reviewer,
no
yeah.
idea. It just came across my desk one day. They're like, review this. I'm like, oh, okay. No offense, but when I first got it, I thought it's just another horror movie. Like, I didn't know anything about it. All I got was the title. Like, I don't get like information usually. I just get,
Yeah.
here's your screener. Here you go.
Well,
Sometimes there's a brief little synopsis, and it said something about anthologies. So I'm like, okay, like Creep Show. I do like the ABC of the Death films. You mentioned another one, Southbound, I think it was. That was pretty cool. VHS. That was another one that I
The
liked.
VHS ones, yeah.
Yeah. So I love how it's the same style, the same flavor like that. I thought that was really well done. And I love the artistic merit behind it. There's too many films these days that are just made for money. You know what I mean? It's like you said, the
Right.
Hollywood syndrome. Like, they just put big budget horror out there. They don't care the quality. They just want to get it out there. So I'm really glad you guys actually took the time. And I didn't realize it took 4 years to make the whole thing, but wow. Talk about the fruits of your labor, right? Like, after all that time, you're finally getting the accolades for it.
just going back to the advice too, like, I was hounding the guys at Horror Buzz. I'm like, so are you going to review it? Are you going to review it? So it's that persistence that gets you. Either they're going to get irritated with you and give you a totally bad review or a bad write-up, or they're going to, say, hey, yeah, finally, we'll get around to doing that for you. So.
Well, hey, it paid off. Here we are.
Again, sir.
So, for the viewers, the movie's called Underneath. It's an anthology of terror. Look for it. It's going to be on Blu-ray, hopefully this time, and DVD, hopefully this time in the summer. Give it a few months. And I'll let you guys go. Thank you again for your time.
In case you haven't heard, I'm a film critic on HorrorBuzz.com, and I make frequent appearances on HorrorBuzz Live, their YouTube channel. So I'll make sure to put links below for that. So until next time, I'm Mr. Flickster, and I just love motion pictures. Have a great day. Mr. Flickster.